How do we know there will be Marauders after an SHTF event? Well, luckily, the YouTube comments section can actually give you some good insight as to the fact that people like that do exist now and will exist then. So stick around for the rest of the video. We're going to talk about 5 comments you'll see on prepper channels that prove Marauders will exist in SHTF. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're going to talk about how we know Marauders will exist post-SHTF thanks to the comments section on prepper channels all over YouTube. Now, if you've ever ran a YouTube channel or you've just been a heavy commenter on YouTube channels, you'll see a lot of these different comments all over the place. But specifically, prepper channels have a lot of interaction with the community, and some people just like to make sure you know about what their thoughts are in any kind of an SHTF event. Long-term emergency style events don't sound like a great time for a lot of people. So you'll see a lot of these comments on any of the big prepper channels that are out there and any of the small ones as well, because it definitely is a sentiment that's shared by a lot of people. And like I said before, it proves the point that Marauders will exist in an SHTF environment. So if you're worried about Marauders or you're on YouTube and you see some of the comments we're about to talk about here in this video, hit the subscribe button below because we're going to keep talking about these things. And it is true that sometimes things like the internet can actually open our eyes to some possibilities that will exist in the future if things unfold in a certain type of way. So one of the first comments you'll see on every prepper channel at some point that you definitely want to be aware of in the sense of a possible Marauder in the making, right, is that nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. Well, what does that really mean when somebody says that? To me, it sounds like it's a dismissive belief about what could or could not happen in the future. The point of preparation isn't because we know that an exact certain thing is going to happen at an exact certain time in an exact certain way. The point of preparation is to be ready for anything to possibly happen, regardless of whether or not it actually does. So the idea of just saying nothing's going to happen, why do you even prepare, is basically a dismissive stance of saying I'm not willing to prepare because I'm dismissing the possibility of ever needing to be prepared. And that is just not something that works for me, and probably not something that works for you. If you know anything about preparedness, you know that even things as simple as a natural disaster can disrupt your life in a huge way, and suddenly you find yourself in a bad spot if you're not prepared for said disaster. So yes, are we talking about major SHTF events often on channels like mine? Of course, you know, EMPs, and then there's World War III, and then there's other things happening around the world, considering maybe pandemics and stuff like that. But at the same time, SHTF scenarios can happen to you if you live in Florida and it's hurricane season. So there's a lot of things you can prepare for, and just saying it'll never happen or nothing is going to happen doesn't mean those things just suddenly disappear. So if you want to dismiss the possibility of something happening, even though history has proven things will happen, I mean, ask people in the Great Depression if they thought they would live through something like that. I doubt they did. So that is the first comment you'll see just about on every prepper channel that kind of proves the point that if somebody's dismissing those possibilities, when that time comes, when they get desperate enough, Marauder, Marauder, Marauder. Okay, so the second comment that you're going to see all over prepper channels, and it's something that kind of bugs me because it's something that you shouldn't rely on in the sense of preparation. And that, often related to things like ammunition and firearms, is going to be there will be plenty laying on the ground. Okay, that's a comment you'll see on all types of prepper channels all over YouTube. And the reason you're seeing those comments is because those people are basically undetermined. They're undetermined to acquire things that they know they might need in case there's ever a long-term emergency, and want to pass the buck on to those of us who are determined. And now, us being determined will either be wiped out in some way or another, or we won't have the ability to have the supplies that we hoard, according to the comments, and those people will then come in and pick up the mess and acquire everything that we worked so hard for. So don't worry about stockpiling ammunition, don't worry about storing food, don't worry about having water storage. There'll just be plenty of it laying all over the ground. You can say that about footwear, you can say that about clothing, they'll say that about gas masks, they'll say that about PPE, they'll say it about everything, okay? And so Does that mean that there won't be things to scavenge and there won't be things laying on the ground? Of course not. That's a possibility. You can't weigh it out as not being one, but to prepare on that as being your source of whatever those supplies are is not a good way to think. And like I said, it's an undetermined mindset to say, I'm just not determined enough to acquire these things now, so then I'll just wait till the time is right and I know it'll just be laying around everywhere for me to take. Keep that in mind because that is marauder thoughts. Those are marauder thought processes, okay? Just saying. Okay, so the third comment you'll see all over prepper channels that just doesn't make sense, and it also has a lot of naivety to it, is I'll just go to Walmart, or I'll just go to Costco, or I'll just go to insert big box store. Those comments are people who just don't believe they have a reason to actually stockpile any kind of resources, and they think that in a time of emergency or a time of turmoil, they'll just be able to go to the local sporting goods store or the local grocery store and get all the supplies that are there, because there's just so much in those stores that there's no way that they'll run out before they make their way there. And you know, of course, then you even get some people who are going to take that store by force. So that being said, those comments are dangerous as well, because when those people get to those stores and when those people realize that there's literally nothing left on the shelves, they will then become marauders. So that being said, think about this. Right now we're in an ammo shortage. Right now we're seeing more panic buying. These stores aren't closed yet. It is not post SHTF yet. We are not in some kind of an apocalyptic dystopia yet. However, the stores are already empty in many ways about the supplies that people talk about needing in a post SHTF scenario. So planning on going to these stores after the fact and planning on that being your main source of all these resources everybody needs is bad planning and will create desperate people who will realize the hard way after all the turmoil they probably have to endure to make it to said locations that there's nothing there. And then those people will become dangerous because they're going to get desperate very fast when their plan A fell apart and there was no plan B because they weren't prepared or prepping. Okay? So, the fourth comment. The fourth one you'll see on like every prepper channel. And it's something that is, how do I want to say this? Maybe a personal attack, okay? But at the same time, the fourth one you're going to see is you won't be able to blank, okay? And when I say that, it means there's just going to be somebody who always mentions that you won't be able to do the task or the thing that you're trying to put out there as being a possibility for you to have to do at some point, okay? And I look at that as an underestimation situation, okay? It's underestimating the ability of other people, which is a weakness in any kind of a strategic situation. You never underestimate your enemy or your foe because you will provide them a weakness by doing so. And it's the same to be said in any kind of a survival situation. If you underestimate somebody's ability and you're counting on that to be a reason why they will or won't survive, then that is an issue in the sense of lack of resources, and it's an issue in the sense of telling people what they can or cannot do, because I think most of the people in this community don't like that. It seems that way to me, especially when it comes to government overreach. But when it comes to someone saying, I've got a 50-pound rucksack that I'm going to be able to bug out with, you will be told, no matter how big you are, no matter how fit you are, no matter how much hiking or backpacking you do, that you will not be able to carry that bag and you will die. And you will not make it to your next location because that weight will kill you and you'll never make it. And that's just a terrible idea. It's the same as, why should you even own a rifle? What's the point of having a rifle? In SHTF scenarios, you won't be able to hit your target. You're not going to be able to actually shoot at anything that might be moving. You're not going to be able to actually engage someone else or engage an animal to hunt or anything in that nature because, you know, you won't be able to. And that is a huge one you see on all the prepper channels. And honestly, like I said, it's an underestimation value of other people's abilities, which is dangerous for the person who's underestimating because they don't know what these people are capable of. But at the same time, it's also them projecting their inability to accomplish certain tasks onto other people. So keep that in mind because that's another sense of somebody being a marauder. And when they're a marauder, they're going to look at somebody who has that stuff put together and say, I need that, and figure out a way to retrieve it, whether or not that's in an ethical manner, okay? So keep that in mind, because that is a comment you see all the time. And now I'm saying this after having a channel for over a year and a half now, and I'm seeing these comments ever since the beginning. So I'm just putting it out there for you guys. You'll see them, I guarantee it. Keep looking through the comments section on my channel, on all the other prepper channels, and you'll see these comments, okay? And you have to understand that I'm having a good time with this video because I see those comments so often, and you don't always want to directly address them because there's really no point in many ways, but it is interesting that it proves to me, and it should prove to you, that there's probably going to be some Marauders out there after SHTF, okay? So the last one you see all over the place, and the most defeatist one you'll see, is why would you want to survive anyway? Or why would you want to live in an SHTF environment? Or why would you want to survive after this, that, or the other thing? Well, obviously survival is the name of the game. That's why we prepare. We want to survive whatever might come our way. And that doesn't mean you're just surviving. It could be that your plan is to survive and thrive post SHTF situations. However, a lot of comments that say this, and this is my opinion, have the mindset of making an excuse. I don't want to prepare. I don't want to prep. I don't want to actually invest any time or energy into being ready for things that could or could not ever happen. So therefore, I will justify my inaction through a response of, why would I want to survive that anyway? And in doing so, I no longer have to try to survive because I won't want to. So it won't really matter if I do or I don't. Keep that in mind, because that comment is on all channels, and often it's even on channels that aren't prepper channels, but it is an excuse for not preparing. And that's the kind of mindset that is there. And those people who have zero preparation, who do zero prepping or planning for anything to possibly go wrong or any kind of a long-term SHTF event to ever occur, are the ones who will definitely become Marauders. And when that happens, you have to understand that it's not because they're bad people, it's because they're going to become desperate and then eventually going to need the things that you decided you needed before they ever decided they needed them, okay? So these are the things I've learned from the comments on YouTube and from being a creator here on YouTube, and reading through all the comments and realizing that if you're not a prepper and these are the things you're commenting, you're probably going to be a Marauder. And that's okay, because you know what? You're not a prepper now, you're not going to be a prepper in the future, and that's fine. But if you are a prepper, these are the people we have to at least keep an eye out for in any post-SHTF event, because we know they'll be desperate, they won't have what they need, and their excuses or their reasonings behind why they do or don't do things now isn't going to matter during an SHTF event. So keep these things in mind. These comments are why we know Marauders will exist. We just know they do, then we know they will, and these comments will keep going no matter what happens into the future. But it is an interesting thing to see, because there's a shared sentiment by a lot of people to have the same exact opinion on a lot of these same matters. So if you've noticed comments like that, leave some below. If you want to leave those style of comments, leave them below also, because it'll probably be hilarious, and at the same time, I already expect them to happen. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. There's some proof out there in the pudding, as some people might say, that these Marauders are going to be a real thing. And YouTube, thanks to the comments section, has given me some additional proof. And I wanted to share it with you all. So if you have any other questions about how we know Marauders will exist in an SHTF event, ask me in the comments, send me a message via my website, magicprepper.com. But otherwise, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.